Well, today the UK confirmed it sent long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine as it prepares a massive counter-offensive. So is Putin losing the war and his grip on power? I'm joined by Evgeny Popov, an MP for Putin's United Russia Party and host of the Russian 60 Minutes political news programme. Mr. Popov, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Why is Russia losing this war?
Let me correct you, Piers, and thank you for giving me your floor. I'm not a member of any party in Russia. I am in a faction of parliamentary in Russian Duma of United Russia. And of course, I'm for Vladimir Putin, especially right now. Russia is not losing the war. Of course, we can see your plans to make an offense to our territory, to our troops, to some Russian cities inside my country. But we're gonna fight for our security guarantees for Russian people on Donbass, because you told a lot of stories today, but you didn't tell the main story. 7 people have been injured in Horlivka in Donbass. 1 people was killed by Ukrainian bomb in Donetsk today. Many people have been injured in Kherson territory. But you only see and you only cover one side.
Hang on. Let me stop you there. The real story, if you want the real story, is that Russia illegally invaded Ukraine, a democratic sovereign country, which is now a democracy. They illegally invaded it over a year ago, assumed it would just run it over in a few days, met extraordinary resistance from the Ukrainian people, and has spent the next year and a bit committing war crimes, acts of utter barbarism against the Ukrainian people, deliberately targeting civilians, targeting maternity hospitals, shelling people in streets, committing mass murder all over Ukraine. That's the real story.
That's the real story for you, because you live in the myths, dear Piers. Because I thought you are a reporter and journalist, because we used to live in New York at the same time, and I well remember you on CNN, and you've been great journalist, great interviewer. But let me answer your questions. If you're talking to me about real situation, but I can tell you about real situation. How about Georgia? Yesterday, we lifted ban on direct flights between Georgia and Russia. What was the United States response? They told Tbilisi, the real democratic government of a sovereign country, that they can't fly to Russia. Georgians can't fly to Russia. We canceled visa regime with Georgia. What the United States told us,
hang on. With respect, you're not talking about what I just explained to you is the real story. Why did Russia illegally invade Ukraine? Why is Russia committing endless war crimes in Ukraine? Why is Russia kidnapping tens of thousands of Ukrainian children and taking them out of the country? Why are you as a country doing all these things? Why is Vladimir Putin behaving like a brazen dictator who thinks he can just seize countries and kill anyone that gets in his way? They're the questions I want you to answer. Do you have any answer?
What question you want me to respond first?
Why did you illegally invade Ukraine?
We didn't invade Ukraine. I can tell you a long story.
Well, don't bother with a long story. You clearly invaded Ukraine.
Crimes of Ukrainian government. I can tell you a lot of stories which I been seeing by my own eyes on Donbass. How Ukrainian army still killing many Russians on Donbass territory.
The Ukrainian people, led by President Zelensky, are defending themselves against what has resembled, on occasion, genocidal behavior by Russia. And I don't use that phrase lightly. I went to Bucha, for example, in Kyiv, and saw for myself the scene of the massacre that occurred there. I talked to people who had lost relatives in that massacre. That was a war crime. And Vladimir Putin and others involved in this are going to be held account to it. But I simply ask you again, why did Russia illegally invade Ukraine? And now that it's been going on for nearly a year and a half, and it was supposed to last 3 days, when are you going to accept this has been a total fiasco, a disaster for Russia? We saw the pathetic scene at the victory parade of one tank, which presumably is all you've got left to show off on your victory parade. When are you going to stop the killing and the murder?
You're like Tucker Carlson. This is your mono.
It's not a monologue. I'm just telling you some cold, hard facts.
This is not a fact. You don't know facts because I have heard your questions. Because this story had began many years before our invasion to Ukraine.
Well, when you invaded Crimea, you mean?
You should study history.
I know when you invaded Crimea, yeah. You illegally invaded Crimea in 2014, and then you illegally invaded Ukraine last year.
I've seen it by
so
my
I'm fairly up to speed on the history of what you've been doing.
I've been in Donbass, I've been in Crimea. I've seen everything by my own eyes, you know? And I can tell you about every moment of this conflict from 2004, from
yeah, but you don't think that Russia invaded Ukraine. Therefore, you're living in a totally deluded world which doesn't exist, because obviously Russia invaded Ukraine. Everybody saw it. The whole world saw it. But you called it a special operation, and the special operation turned out to be a complete disaster, didn't it? And now you're losing, and even the Wagner mercenary group are calling Putin a moron.
Can I answer you?
Yeah.
Can I respond?
If you can.
Of course I
don't
can,
think it's funny, Mr. Popov. You might.
It's not a funny.
I don't think the slaughter and the maiming of thousands and thousands of innocent civilians in Ukraine is funny. Sorry, I don't.
As Russia can say any word. I, as Russian people, as my state, can say a word. We can't explain what happens because you live in the myths. You live in this Western stereotypes. You should respond on your war crimes. You should give arrest warrants to Tony Blair, to George Bush for Iraq. You should give
well, for one, okay, on that, okay, hang on. For what it's worth, I led the campaign in Britain with the Daily Mirror newspaper against the Iraq war. I felt that was... Well, hang on. Let me finish. I thought that was an illegal invasion of a sovereign country, not dissimilar to what we've been seeing in Ukraine from Russia.
No.
And I'm not afraid, Mr. Popov, to admit that I think my country behaved illegally with that invasion. Are you prepared to admit that your country illegally invaded Ukraine?
You're going to send your Prime Minister to behind the bars? You didn't do that.
Are you prepared to admit your country illegally invaded Ukraine?
That's completely false, and that's not true.
Okay. Mr. Popov, if you can't, honestly, if you're going to deny the obvious, then we're going to have to leave it there. I appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much indeed.